Perfect. So this is going to be a very light session. We'll be talking about how you can create AI copies on Bitscale and like what kind of best practices can you follow, what kind of context you can provide, how do you provide those contexts, how like different models fare in different situations, what are the pros of some models, what are the cons of some models, etc. And I'll also be showing you a few workflows that we have built here, specifically three of those, and how you can then utilize them in your own like use cases as well. And then the floor would be open for any questions, etc. So I'll just present my screen. Perfect. So just a second. Right. So when you're creating content on Bitscale, you need to understand a few things first. All right. An AI model is just as good as the prompts that you give to it, right? So, a few best practices that I wanted to discuss with you guys is first of all, keeping it very specific. So, whenever you're writing a prompt, give it some directions, give it some guidelines. So, something like it should be structured in a way wherein you first like give an overview, then give it some steps, and later you can like pass some context, etc. And avoid using language that is too complicated. So simple, like what you wanted to do, just explain that, and that can help you out with creating some real good content. uh, Other than that, if you like want to pass some context, okay, so what I've seen like commonly happening with people who are operating on Bitscale is that whenever they get some context, I'll give an example. So I'll just take my LinkedIn here, paste it here, right? And maybe let me initialize my LinkedIn profile, right? We'll just tag this column, save, and run. So, all right. So my profile is initialized right here. Now, let's imagine that I want to create an outreach specifically for this person, whoever's profile I have available. And if I'm writing a prompt and I straight away tag this entire context in the beginning, so something like this, like create a mail copy for, and then I tag the LinkedIn profile. How it really appears to the model is that it's written create a mail copy for, and then this entire dump is available. So even if you do end up giving more context later, like maintain the wordings of someone who is in like 12th grade, etc., or do not appear salesy, any such prompt would not carry much weight because by the time the model reaches these lines, it already has so much context regarding the LinkedIn profile that it might hallucinate or make something up on its own. So it is always recommended that whenever you are tagging any kind of context, it is always done at the bottom. So a few examples would be, obviously you can like get context from LinkedIn profiles. These are a real good place to start to get some personal information about the person. Other than that, you can also include things such as recent posts and recent comments, like if they are interacting with some kind of post, etc. You can pull them in and pass them as context. A few other examples would be utilizing our web search tools. So you can see them at work when I'll be showing you the workflows as well. But I'll just give you a brief overview right now. So, like for example, if you want to get any information from their website, case studies, etc., you can utilize our Bit Agent. Or if you want to look for like recent announcements regarding the company, if they're making any new moves in the market, in cases such as those, you can utilize a Google web search. And once you have all of those research done, everything available in your grid, only then should you go ahead and create content. And the context should always be passed at the bottom. So something like this. Wait for the person whose LinkedIn dump is available, and then just pass the LinkedIn dump here. So what this basically means is it should have the context of the entire prompt before you give in any input context. So yeah, so this is it regarding the basic formatting of the prompt and like what kind of things can be done, how to write the prompt, etc. for the content, how to pass context. Right, I'll just head over to the next slide. Okay, now what models to use and when to use them. So these are the respective heads of OpenAI, Claude, and DeepSeek, and AI generated image. So regarding these three models, what I have come to realize is that OpenAI or GPT is really good at following guidelines or steps. So if you ask it to do something, there's a very high chance that it would be able to pull it off. The thing is, while it is doing this, it loses some of the creativity that some of the other models might have. So in my opinion, the best thing to do is, like, whenever you want to, like, give some complex guidelines, like if there's a multi-step procedure that you're trying to follow when you're creating your content, you should prefer GPT over Claude or DeepSeek. If you want like some kind of humane content generated, then you should prefer Claude over GPT and DeepSeek. DeepSeek, in essence, I don't personally use DeepSeek a lot, but I have come to understand that at least the beginning and the end of the content is usually very crisp when you're utilizing DeepSeek, but it tends to kind of lose context in the middle. So if you are creating short form content, or if you're generating content in various different steps, then you can utilize DeepSeek. Else, my recommendation would always be to utilize Claude or GPT. These work well in conjunction also, which I'll show you in one of our workflows. So another thing to consider is that Claude sometimes has a lot of like keywords stuffing. So what that really means is that it would like put in a lot of jargon sometimes, a lot of keywords. So if you're utilizing that for creating SEO based content or blogs, you would have to like bear in mind that sometimes too many keywords may actually reduce your rankings. So keep that in mind whenever you're creating content. Next is the three types of generation that you can do on Bitscale. So this is the main aspect of today's webinar, wherein I'll be showing you three workflows. In one, we'll be creating an entire mail body from scratch. We'll be just be utilizing a single LLM step. We'll be generating the entire mail in one go. Next, we'll be splitting them into three parts: the icebreaker, the value prop, and the CTA. And then we'll be generating them separately and then collating them together. And the last would be the one that we personally recommend to almost all of our users. It's a placeholder based generation, wherein you have a static mail setup and you are generating placeholders or fill in the blanks for all of these mails. And then at the end of some outreach software, maybe Instantly or Smart Leads, you are then sequencing those mails, setting everything together, passing those placeholders as variables, and then attaching them inside Instantly. So yeah, I'll just start with the workflows now. Right. So here's one that we have set up. So a rule of thumb that I follow whenever I'm trying to create a outreach on scale is that I always try to provide the company's blurb. Models tend to hallucinate quite often, so it is always recommended that they have context of whom they are representing. So that is what I always recommend. We always set up a company blurb. So what that really means is I just head over to Perplexity, ask about the company, and ask it to generate a blurb. I just paste that blurb here. And if there's some other criterions or guidelines that you want to maintain, it is recommended that you paste that here as well. So once the blurb is there, in this grid, what we have done is we have retrieved the company's profile or the person's LinkedIn profile, and we have done a sort of a company website audit to look for compliance based issues. And then we are utilizing all these three data points, which are the company's blurb, the LinkedIn profile, and the website audit to create the final copy. So this is the prompt that we have utilized. As I mentioned earlier, some general guidelines, some steps, what I wanted to do. If I wanted to avoid something, I'll mention that here. And then in the end, I have passed all of these input parameters so that after it has contextualized the entire prompt, only then it tries to parse through whatever inputs that we are given. So fairly decent mails, nothing too crazy, nothing to go like too happy about. So this is the mails that were generated, and that is because we are generating the entire mail together. Now, an issue in this that I have noticed quite often is that in large grids, like when you have like 500, 1,000, maybe a couple thousand rows, there is going to be some hallucination. And in cases such as those, and if you're like not monitoring this at all, it can then like wreak havoc on your outreach like campaigns and GTM flows. Because even a single like lead that you reach out to, and if it goes like extremely bad, if you start like referencing to them as them, which I have seen happening sometimes, in cases such as those, there can be huge problems and huge repercussions. So that is why we never actually recommend a complete generation of mails. We always ask our users to split them into multiple parts before generating. But just to show you guys how that really happens, that is why I've set up this workflow. And if you want to try this workflow out on your own, we can share it to you. No worries. Just drop us a DM or ask us in the support channel. I'll share it with you. No problem at all. Next is the split generation. So this is kind of like a balanced generation wherein we're not generating the entire email in one go. We're generating the icebreaker separately. We're generating the value prop separately, and then we're generating the CTA separately. Uh, it's not really required to generate the CTA, to be very honest. It can be static. As a matter of fact, the icebreaker can also be static sometimes. Uh, but yeah, in essence, what we're doing is we're splitting the mail into three parts before we do any kind of generation. So this is how it looks like. As I mentioned earlier, we do have the company's blurb available. It's always there. And for the icebreaker, we are getting the LinkedIn profile, and then we are also passing the blurb as context. So as I mentioned earlier, we'll always pass the company's blurb as context so that the model never forgets who it's representing. And the flow of the prompt is identical, general direction, steps, what to avoid, etc. If there's any output format that you want to mention. So yeah, earlier when we were generating the entire mail copies, the LLM model has a general idea of how a mail looks like. But when you're generating them in splits, so if you're generating like icebreaker separately, CTA separately, or the value prop separately, you might have to give some context of how the output should look like. So that is what I've done here for the icebreaker. Same for the CTA, very similar prompt, general directions, steps, etc. And for the value prop, only there we are utilizing the company website audit. So in the previous iteration or the previous workflow, there would have been too much context for the model, and also the prompt is long by itself. So sometimes there is a chance where there may be a confusion or the model tends to hallucinate. But here we have split the context into multiple parts. So in the icebreaker, we are sending the LinkedIn profile as context. And in the CTA, we might also pass the LinkedIn profile as context. But in the value prop, we're only sending the company website audit as context. So these are working like concurrently, but in the end, we can collate them together in the final outreach, which might look something like this. So hi, add first name, the icebreaker, value prop CTA, and then some salutations. And it creates a pretty decent final outreach. Nothing too crazy, but someone who reads this might feel, okay, this might not be AI generated, etc. And so right now we generated everything from GPT. As you might remember earlier, I had mentioned that Claude usually has a more humane touch whenever it is writing content. So here what I've done is after generating the final outreach, I'm utilizing Claude as a copywriter. I am asking it to rephrase the final mail. I've given it some context here. And I'm asking it to create the mail in a way where it appears to be more human. So this is the result that we had, and I was fairly happy with it. But it would obviously depend on your use case. And one thing that I had not mentioned earlier is that whenever you're writing the prompt, it is recommended that you give examples, as many as you can. And sometimes you may notice that the GPT is giving more weightage to the examples, and it is designed to do so. So pick some good examples of mails that actually work for you. And whenever you're setting up a prompt, pass those examples in the prompt itself so that it knows what works and what does not work. So these were the two initial ways in which you can generate mails. The last and final one, and this is the most recommended from our end, is the placeholder based generation. So what this really means is that almost identical to split generation. It's just that rather than splitting the entire mail body into different parts and generating them, we keep the mail body as static. The content stays static. It's just that some parts of the content that is generated by the model. So for example, if we have an icebreaker setup, some part of the icebreaker will be generated by the model. Or just a second, I think I have a power outage. Right. No worries. Perfect. Right. So if there's an icebreaker, there would be some placeholder that I want to generate there. In value prop, there might be a placeholder that I want to generate there. So think of it like fill in the blanks. So there is a static mail available, and you're asking the model to fill in those blanks for that mail. The prompt is once again fairly similar. We are passing the company blurb as context, and we're doing the website audit to find like use cases where we can help out. A fairly simple prompt here. We're looking for errors or risks that the companies whose blurb we are given can solve. Once we have that, we are also giving some context as to how the final mail body looks like whenever we're trying to generate the placeholders. And then in the output format, we're asking it to return only the placeholders that we want. So the response looks something like this. The placeholders, like what example I want to mention, what the first name was, and what the current customer it wants to refer to. And these data points were mentioned here. And you will notice that almost every current customer is Bitscale because that is what I had put in. So this is by design. And once I have all of these data points available, I am collating them together here. And for in your case, you would be doing this on maybe instant leads end or smart leads end. And once you have all the placeholders available, the mail would look something like this. It is a little bit more targeted. It's mentioning something specific. So for example, in this mail, the use of cookies could introduce vulnerabilities if not managed properly. Something very specific about their website that they're utilizing. They might be using cookies like inefficiently, etc. And yeah, so these mails are usually hard hitting. You can micromanage them, A/B test them, like what kind of copies are working, what kind of copies are not working. You can replicate them easily. So it is always recommended that you follow this kind of email outreach whenever you are creating mails at scale. Next, so yeah, these are the three workflows. And if you want and to try out any of these workflows, just reach out to me. I can share them with you, and maybe we'll add them as playbooks later so that anyone and everyone can utilize them in their GTM flows. Next is you are the most important part of the workflow. So what this really means is whenever you are creating any mail copy at scale, it is always recommended that you at least test out the first few copies to see what kind of response you're getting. The AI model is just as good as the prompter. So if you have given it a nice prompt, do check what kind of response you're getting, vet it, run it for around 10, 12, 15, 20 rows. see if the final mail you're getting is good enough or not. Only then run it for like huge flows or huge grids. So yeah, this is majorly what I wanted to share with you guys today. The floor is open for any and all questions. So let me know. Yeah, yes, please go ahead. Yash? Interesting. Wait, let me check what's going on here. You appear to be unmuted. Just that. Hmm. All right. While Yash is rejoining, anyone else? Any questions? Okay, he's back.
Yeah, hey, hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, Yash. Yes, please go ahead.
So I actually had two questions. Firstly, great session. Like all the three methods actually really would help us, and I would really love if you could share those after the session.
Definitely.
First question is regarding the blurb, right, that you provide about my own company
Right.
as training data. Is there a way to actually run some kind of an automation over my PDFs or say case studies that I have already, right?
Right.
And I could probably use them within the content as a part of context setting.
Got it. Got it. Uh, what you can do in that case is maybe you can pass all of the documentations that you already have into a GPT chat as context, and then ask that GPT chat to create a one-time metadata of sorts or mapping, and then you can pass that instead of the blurb inside the Bitscale grids. So it might be a one-time process that you would have to follow, but once that is done, that context would always remain across rows, and then you can utilize that anywhere.
That might help. And yeah, and secondly, the second part of this process, right? Pushing the context, content, as well as the contact information to instantly or as smartly.
Right.
Can that be automated as well?
Yeah, definitely. So we can schedule the grids now. So if there's an input that you're utilizing, maybe from your CRM, if the data points are being transferred from your CRM onto the Bitscale and you've set the workflow up, yeah, we can automate the process wherein uh, the leads are coming from your CRM, it's coming onto Bitscale, then the copies are being generated and then pushed onto instantly, or the placeholders are being generated and then pushed onto instantly. That can be done. But as I mentioned earlier as well, it's always helpful to have a human in the loop, especially when you're doing reach outs. So while this can be done and it is possible on our platform, I would always recommend that you have a human in loop who's at least randomly checking like what kind of responses are being generated before pushing them all to instantly or any outreach software that you're utilizing.
Great, thanks.
Right. Perfect. Perfect. So yeah, any other questions? Yes. Yes, Harshita. Please go ahead.
Hey Adarsh, thanks for the session. I have just one question. So, for example, this is good for just a general email, right? But there are different products that fits for each company differently.
Right.
How can I do that mapping at scale?
So you're right. So in actually, one of our users, what they're doing is that they work in compliance and like certifications. So what they've done is they've created a mapping of sorts, wherein they know like HIPA certification only works with health tech, or certain type of certification only works in certain regions. So the blurb is always a one-time process that you would have to set up. Maybe a generalized blurb is not relevant for you. In
Hmm.
your case, it might be something a little more specific. Like, as you mentioned, like you might have a strategy that you guys follow whenever you are like reaching out to different people working in different domains or different geographies or different type of products. So create a metadata out of that or a mapping out of that. Some kind of like, okay, if a person is in X location in Y type of company, then we should pitch this product. And then there's a whole list of these permutations. And then if you pay, it's a one-time process, obviously. And then you can paste that into the blurb, and then you can initialize that whenever you're writing any kind of copies. So the model will know. Okay, so it can anyways like find out what geographies or what industry that company is operating in, and if you're able to like give it some context as to what kind of product will be best for them, the model will be able to create a nice value prop in that case.
Got it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, if I understood correctly, you're saying that while writing the blurb, I can, not go specifically company by company writing the product. I can just create a workflow in the blurb. If there's this keyword, then pitch this product. Kind of, this is what you're saying.
Exactly, that can be done.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions, guys? Great. So I think we're out of questions. So yeah, this was the session. I'll be sharing the recording on the announcement group, maybe, or maybe on some other group. And you can check this out whenever you want. These grids will be available publicly. If you maybe I'll put them in playbooks, or if you want access to them like sooner, just DM me. I'll shoot over the shareable links to you. And yeah, nice talking to you guys. Cheers.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, guys.